Hey everyone, Sassy Mouse here, and today I want to talk a little bit about the Texas abortion bill, and obviously some of the concerns that are around that and all of that craziness that's going on. So, I did not script this, I do not currently have a teleprompter, and I have a hard time remembering scripts, so I usually wing it. I'm not sure my thoughts are clearly laid out, and this topic is a little sensitive. So, I'm not trying to offend anyone. I know how emotionally hurtful getting an abortion can be, even if I've never gotten one myself. I also know how emotionally challenging it can be to have a child, especially one that is not planned. Please remember, I don't mean anything I say to hurt anyone. If this topic is sensitive to you, please consider watching a different video because I don't want to hurt anyone who's viewing my content. First off, obviously as a harm reductionist, I do not think that this is a smart decision. Historically, when abortions were illegal, completely illegal, women would do all sorts of dangerous and risky and potentially life-threatening things to end an unwanted pregnancy. And I know that in the anti-abortion community, the idea is that they want all fetuses to be turned into babies, to be born. Well, all fetuses cannot be born. Some situations necessitate them not being born. There's certain circumstances where that's just not necessarily the appropriate choice, or where choosing to have a child may result in both the mother and the child being dead. More importantly than that, I personally think that there's a difference between life and quality of life. There are people, many people, who are born and have a home situation that is not healthy or supportive of them, and ultimately results in them suffering far greater pain than they would have felt if they had been aborted before they even have a nervous system. Now that said, obviously abortions are still sort of allowed. I believe it's 6 weeks, but the truth is that the majority of women may not know that they are pregnant by the 6-week mark. Depending on when you got pregnant, at best that gives you a couple weeks after missing a period. Worse than that, some people will have irregular periods just as part of their natural cycle, and they may not realize that they are pregnant until significantly later. Some people have minimal effects from being pregnant, like they may not get morning sickness or some of the other side effects that are indicative of early pregnancy, and all of these things will result in these people not realizing that they are pregnant until much later. And depending on the circumstances, this can have a dramatic negative impact. And yeah, adoption is an option, but are you going to adopt their child? Probably not. You know, the people who are anti-abortion, pro-life, whatever you want to call it, although pro-life is a little generous, but whatever. If you are an anti-abortion person and you believe that adoption is the right choice and you do choose to adopt a child or multiple children, then yeah, you're putting your money and your actions where your mouth is, and that is commendable. I definitely admire the people who follow through on adopting children, although arguably not all adoptive parents are good either, but most people who adopt have thought about it more. But the truth is, the majority of people who are saying, oh, adoption is a choice, are not going out adopting children because they're probably busy having their own biological children and not adopting the children who are in terrible circumstances or who are unwanted. Foster care is obviously an important service, but forcing more children to be born to ultimately go into foster care or into group homes or things like that is not ethical. It's not a caring thing to do. Forcing people who have been sexually assaulted to have a child that, sexual assault is a complicated thing, and for various reasons, people may end up becoming pregnant from sexual assault and then not having any options because of this. More importantly, people who are being chronically assaulted, people who are in situations where they're being abused by someone who they know on a regular basis, are much more likely to be affected negatively by this bill, and may ultimately result in them having to carry the child of someone who hurt them deeply on multiple occasions. Ultimately, bills like this and things that value the lives of fetuses, which, you can make arguments for where in a pregnancy to end it, but ultimately it's not a full human yet. It has not developed a life and experiences and all these things, and you're valuing a fetus over the woman or the person who is carrying that child, that fetus, who has had a life, who has had experiences, who is potentially suffering significantly for this, and may carry that suffering onto the child that is born from this, into their life, into their things, because they did not want this child. Worse, this bill makes it a crime to not report people who are getting abortions. It makes you complicit in people seeking to make their own healthcare choices about their body and their lives. It's horrible, because people, if you choose to go somewhere else, somewhere outside of Texas, or to do some underground, dangerous and incredibly risky black market abortion type situation, having other people rat on you and going to prison, or having some sort of legal consequences, or other people who you care about having legal consequences for this, is just spreading the hurt around. It's spreading the pain, it's spreading the suffering. Point is, this bill is a travesty, and it's incredibly disrespectful of people who are capable of getting pregnant, of young people who are starting their lives. It's incredibly disrespectful of everyone. In the entire community of Texas is being disrespected by this. Even if you believe that abortions are a bad thing, it is still disrespectful to you, because it's saying that ultimately you and the people around you are complicit in whatever the fuck you think is, it's wrong for the entire community, because it puts everyone at risk. It will have negative impacts on your community long term. It'll have negative impacts on all childbearing people in that community, and it can have negative impacts on everyone who knows those people. It could potentially put anyone at risk if someone in the community chooses to have an abortion after 6 weeks. The unfortunate thing is there is some likelihood that this could expand to other areas, which is just tragic. And the places where this is most likely to expand are also places that are often lacking in comprehensive sexual education. Telling young people to just not have sex doesn't actually solve the problem. Young people, when they do start being sexually active, whether that is before or after they make a legal bond with someone to be married, does not educate them about how to do this in a safe way. Pregnancies are not always because you are a teenager who had sex before marriage. Some people choose to get abortions because they already have several children and the pregnancy was unexpected. But the truth is, more education about different forms of birth control will prevent conception from happening in the first place. ultimately that it has to be a better option, but it is often viewed as being encouraging of teenage sex, which is, it's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. It's nonsense. No studies have shown that that's the case. All the studies have shown that abstinence only increases teen pregnancies, and having comprehensive sex ed where you teach about condoms and the pill and implants and IUDs and various different things, those do not increase the amount of sex that children are having. They do not increase the amount of sex that teenagers and young adults are having. All that it does is make the pregnancy rate go down and make the STD rate go down. Because that's the other thing. Abstinence only has a huge impact on the amount of STDs that are being spread, because people don't know that having sex can cause STDs, or that's where STDs come from. They don't necessarily know that that's where babies come from. Abstinence only and being like, oh, sex is evil, don't have sex until you're married, doesn't leave young people properly equipped to go out into the world. So the true answer, if we were to go in the correct direction, is twofold. The first and probably more important one is making comprehensive sex ed a requirement nationwide. Currently, it is up to individual states to decide this, and in some cases it has had disastrous effects because many states have abstinence-only sex ed. And the ripple effects of that can be huge. The other side of this coin is obviously that 6-week abortion laws are fucked up and should not be a thing. Abortions should be available up until a fetus can start to feel pain. And research should be done to figure out when exactly that is. We should value the lives that we have, the lives that have already experienced things and are capable of feeling emotions and pain and feelings and have social consequences. And we should be valuing their rights and their needs and their lives. We should be pro-adult life, pro-teenage life, not pro-fetus life. Ultimately, I hope that things change at some point. I don't know if they will. Things have been getting crazier and crazier. But I hope that they do at some point. Until then, all we can do is work together to try to protect our community members who need these services, to respect their choices, and to work to educate people on better sexual practices, such as things like using condoms or choosing a long-term birth control that is right for them. And that is a very personal choice, and I do get that. And I know full disclosure, no, I haven't had an abortion, and no, I do not have children. That is a choice I made, and me and my partner made. And I know it's not the right choice for everyone. But it is a choice that should be open to everyone to decide whether or not to have children, when to have children, and to be able to respond to situations that were unforeseeable. Sometimes pregnancies are accidents. Sometimes pregnancies are the result of something fucked up and horrible happening. Regardless if it's a child that you do not want, you shouldn't be forced to suffer through that experience. With that said, please take care, everyone. Stay safer out there. If you are in Texas and you are facing the terrible choice of whether or not to get a back alley abortion, I do encourage you to look into as many other options as you can, because they are incredibly dangerous. Some people may be qualified, but a lot of them aren't. So please stay safer out there. And I hope that at some point we can all move forward from this. Take care, everyone.